Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Ramos Law Difference Makers podcast. I am your host, Dr. Jim Hoven, and I have the unique opportunity every single week to interview, visit with, and basically hang out with some really cool people. And the reason that my job is so fun is that I'm talking to people who are making a difference every single day. Some of the shows we've done in the past have been with people who are making a difference around the world, others around the block. But either way, they are always changing lives for the positive. If you've heard this show and you like it, please do me a favor and share it with others. You can subscribe to our podcast, the Ramos Law Difference Makers podcast, on any of the podcast channels. Also, if there's someone that you think of on the message, on any message that you hear, please send it their way so it can make a positive impact in their lives as well. So today is a very special day for me because I have on not only a super smart guy, a super kind guy, but also a close friend of our family. And this guy is going to give you some information about one of the most important items in your life. What is that, you ask? It's your car. So today, I'm going to talk to Ernie Keller. And Ernie is the owner of Eurotech Golden. And Eurotech Golden is an incredible shop where they do work on all kinds of cars, specialized in obviously European cars, but they take care of all kinds of cars. And we're going to have this cool conversation today about all things cars and a lot of things life. So without further ado, Ernie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We've been talking about this for a while now.
Yes, we have.
And it's so cool to have you here because I think one of the most important items in anyone's life right now is a car, right? It's how we get from A to B. It's how we literally live our lives. Can you imagine? I was thinking about this the other day. We were driving in our car and we were driving from here to, it was a couple hundred miles away. And I'm thinking how easy it is now, how much the car has made our lives different and expanded our universes. Can you imagine horse and buggy, what it would take to do that? So the car's critical, right?
It's very critical because people have to get to work to pay their bills. I mean, they have to pick up their kids at daycare. They have to go see the doctors. I mean, for all different ages. I mean, the means of transportation is so important to keep things rolling forward.
Absolutely. And it's not just like in some cities, you can get away without a car. Some of the Chicagos, New Yorks, if you live there, the transport. But for most of us, you literally cannot function at the highest levels without a vehicle. And so I really wanted to get you on the show, Ernie, so that we could talk a lot of things about cars. But I also want to talk about life because I've had a chance to get to know you now over the last several years. And one of the things that I just appreciate is your outlook on life and just the way that you approach things and the way that you have a work-life balance that just seems, from my perspective, to be so good. So I wanted to combine those things in our journey today. So first, give us a little background about you. Did you always like cars? How did you get to own a auto mechanic shop?
Growing up where I grew up in California, Venice Beach, California, there was just so many different things to do. And it all started with a bicycle, really. And my dad was an engineer for Hughes Aircraft, and him working with me and teaching me how to repair things. If we cracked the frame, he would take it into Hughes Aircraft and have some of his buddies get together and create gussets. And then it all started from there, the explanation of how a gusset works and how you got to.
How old were you when all this was happening?
Oh God, I was probably 8, 9.
8?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Most of us at 8 are playing with Matchbox cars.
No, my dad got me into motorcycles. And he always says, if you're going to own something as for pleasure, they're awful expensive and you got to maintain them, because once you start out with having your toys to have your balance of life, you got to maintain them or you can't afford them.
Yes.
And you also have to keep them up so you can keep scaling up to as your needs broaden and you want something better. You got to make sure your initial investment keeps paying itself off or breaking even.
Yeah, it's protected, right?
Yes.
And so were you a motorhead type kid? Is that like in school? Were you always fixing up cars and making them fast and fixing up bikes and just tinkering with everything?
I think I was, but at that time, I think it was more of adrenaline of going faster. just like we would take our big wheels to the top of a hill and go down, or have someone pull us on a big wheel and see how far we can drift it out on the rope, just kind of kid stuff that you don't see today.
Did your parents know that you were doing said drifting?
Oh, yeah.
Did you have a lot of rug burn, road rash?
Always. And back then we had tough skins. So
you had tough skin. That was a little stingy to put on, right?
Yeah. And, with the tough skins, you can, clothing, you can, from Sears, you can always put patches on them.
There you go. Oh, tough skin, the clothing. I thought you meant tough skin. Oh, I was thinking moleskin. The moleskin. Remember, put that on the road rash? Oh, my goodness. New skin.
Ouch, yeah.
Ouch, indeed.
Or peroxide, where they pour half the bottle on you and say, oh, you'll be fine now, and give you a swift kick in the rear and say, get back out there.
Get back out there. So did you ever want to follow in your dad's footsteps on the engineering side of things, or how did your path take you towards where you just wanted to work on the motors and the other parts of the vehicle?
I understood the mechanics of it and didn't really have the patience to sit down and spend too much time in school.
I gotcha.
So I wasn't an individual that could sit in a classroom. I could tinker, take something apart, put it back together. I could definitely read instructions.
Yes.
And, diagnostics paths as I got older. But as far as sitting there and learning and going through the education path that you have to, it wasn't really for me.
And how was that received by your parents, your peer group? Because here's what I know. Not all minds are created equal. Not all spirits are created equal. And we're not all meant to do the same thing. I've had many conversations on this podcast with guests about college. Is it right for everybody? And I happen to think that college is not right for everybody.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah, lifelong learning is for everybody, but there's 1,000 ways to do that. And as long as we're chasing our heart's passions and our dreams, that's all that really matters. Did you get any grief when you got this dad who's an engineer at Hughes and you're not following his footsteps? Any pushback from that? And how'd you deal with that, if so?
No, my mom was in the corporate world with Hughes Aircraft too, and corporate compensation. And definitely that has a different meaning these days.
Yes.
But, they're both educated, but as far as they go, they just wanted to see us succeed. And the biggest thing for them, they wanted us out of the house and not support us. So
go be independent, fly away.
Yeah. So basically with that, they were just saying, whatever you want to follow. And I remember what my dad said one time to me. He says, you know what, if you have a hobby, go after it. You may not make the money that you want to make right in the beginning, but be patient. If you enjoy something to the fullest, then you can do it a lifetime. And you'll be happy for the 50 years that you got to work.
So beautiful. And what do they say? If you can make your avocation, your vocation, your avocation be the same thing, that you'll never work a day in your life, something like that?
Yeah, he did mention that too.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it's still hard work. Whatever we do, whatever we choose to do, there's great days and there's bad days, but that fulfillment level of the things that we do, it makes a big difference,
that we
right?
accomplish every day. Makes the days go by, and just like once you get out of high school, I can't keep track of the months or the years anymore.
Absolutely. Did you start your shop right out of high school?
Nope. I started with BMW in 1989, and I graduated in 87, actually building up to waiting to get hired on with a dealership in California called Zipper BMW. I did roofing. I was just, did manual labor. And kind of conditioned me to get into the automotive.
To work hard and to know what you wanted. Did you have to go to special training for BMW? Because I know they have all these mechanic schools, right, where you can go to learn to be a mechanic. Was that back the same in the day?
Yes. I went to the First Step program, which is a program that they have still BMW does. But our program back then was for 2 years.
What?
Yeah. So what we did, I got hired on. That's what took a little while, because I had to wait 2 years to get in, for the class to graduate before me. So I was kind of like the second class. And, once I got hired, they put you in the classroom for 2 days. Then you actually had hands-on, and everything you went over, you had you're an apprentice kind of. and you went into the dealership, which was Zipper BMW, and you would actually get hands-on work so you could retain it better.
Awesome.
Instead of just sitting in a classroom getting book smart without connecting the in-between. You can read it and you have it on your mind. You know, you'd watch videos, obviously. Now we have YouTube, and, you know, then you get out onto the, you know, if you don't get out into the real world and use it right away, you kind of purge it.
Yeah,
you know,
loses it.
Because life is so fast.
Yes.
And even back then. So we were doing hands-on book, and it really made you retain it a lot better.
That's
and
incredible.
That was their philosophy back then. But as, you know, the demand gets more, they shortened it. And now it's only 6 months for a STEP program.
And so do you feel that the education is the same quality, or because of all the resources? No.
No, I think the education now is too fast-paced. And, you know, they're not well-versed when they get out. They don't have the experience, the hands-on. You know, you got your mind, obviously, but the mind and the hands have to really work together.
Yes, and that is especially true in something like what you're talking about. And it worked out great for you because your learning style was a kinesthetic, let me get after it, let me try it, as opposed to let me sit and watch or just learn. So it was perfect for you. Do you find that, because you've trained many mechanics and you've watched them and you've helped them grow, do you find that most people that take on the mechanic role, are most of them in that similar genre of learning where they're real kinesthetic folks, or does it vary across the spectrum just like a lot of other things?
It varies across the spectrum, but one thing that I have noticed these days is the disconnect of time management, of how to get it done and what it takes to get it done, instead of just watching it on YouTube, or you watch a video on it, YouTube or other sources, and you think you can do that. And a lot of kids grow up now these days, and they can play some kind of video game to where they can do a motor swap in seconds. And then they really think that they know the technology, they know the specs of everything, but it's not all about the specs.
It doesn't translate just one
to
one.
the manual part of it.
Yeah. Wow. So let me ask you this. If someone listening on the audience says, you know what, I either want to learn to work on my car or I want to be a mechanic, what would be your best advice to them?
I would say find a school near you, you know, because a lot of them in Arvada and Golden have Warren Techs. Go in there. Start learning. Get your hands dirty. Understand it. Get the basics down. Mm-hmm. Understand the tools. You know, because not all the time a pair of pliers or, you know, vice grips or, you know, adjustable wrench will do the job.
Yes.
You got to have the right tool. There's a whole package to this. And it starts with your mind, your hands, knowing what you have, the experience, or just start working on bicycles, taking things apart.
Have you noticed that some people have, and maybe this is just my own bias, have you noticed that there's people that just have an innate skill? It just seems like they were born to fix things and to do that, or does everybody have the same ability? Because I feel like, for example, me, I am just not wired to know how things innately come apart and go together. So you might remember, to tell you this funny story that you were a part of, you came up to our house and the hood was up on the Jeep or something. And as we looked at it, like, oh yeah, we got to change the battery or something, right? Remember that? Or the cable.
Yes.
Some old cable thing. And so you were visiting for an hour and a half, and it took me that long to do what would have taken you literally 10 minutes or less. True?
True.
And because I knew what to do, it's not that I didn't know what to do, because it was like 3 screws and bolts, but my acumen and just how I go about my business, it just seems so clumsy to me. So that's what makes me think, like, you know, I know where my strengths are, that things are innately easy. And that's not part of it. Is that what you've seen, or am I just...
Well, let me ask this question to you, Jim. I mean, when you thought that and you looked at it, you've seen a battery, you know, the quick overview, you're all, oh, that'll take just 10 minutes. And that's where we're at right now in this day and age. But to answer your question, that is, everybody thinks it's easier.
Yes.
And it's not. And that's why I'm saying you
Amen
just
to
got to
that.
kind of get your hands dirty. And that's how you do it, just how you did it. You know, it may take longer, but the more you do it, the more you're around those environments and you're getting familiar in that environment meaning under the hood, then you get familiar with it.
That's beautiful. What do you think everybody who owns a car should know? Like, because you brought up this beautiful principle that if you're going to own one of these toys, you better know how to fix it. And in my case, like, I've got Jeeps, but I don't do a lot of four-wheeling because they are my primary car and I don't know how to fix them. Right. So for me, it's not worth, I don't want to put my main car at risk because I don't have the skill set nor the inclination to want to have it fixed every time. What is the things that me as I'll call myself a non-car guy, what do we all need to know just in case?
Trust your mechanic, a good mechanic, find one. If you go to somebody that gives you a gut feeling that you don't trust, don't go in there. And do your research too. There's so many things online to tell you if they're fair. If,
as far as reviews and such.
Reviews, and also pricing.
And what are you looking for in pricing? Are you looking for the highest price because they must be the best, the lowest price because they're the fairest, something in the middle? Is there a way to look for that, or is it based on your budget?
No, because it could be the cheapest sometimes. I've seen some real good, inexpensive shops, and, they're not charging all that much, and they do good work. I've seen very expensive shops that have a new building and they got a lot of overhead, so they're not paying their techs all that well. So there's a variety of things to really kind of look at, but the main thing is just following your gut, because we all have that intuition that do we feel comfortable with them? Are they talking to us, honestly? Or are they just trying to sell me something?
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up, Ernie. There are different professions, including mine, my training, where you feel like, man, I don't know. So for me, again, trained as a chiropractor, the common people tend to really love chiropractors, or they have this weird sense, and I don't want to go so far as say hate, and there's some hate out there, but the big thing about chiropractors goes along with a joke. How many chiropractors does it take to change a light bulb? One, but you have to go 42 times,
yes.
Right? So we have this reputation of saying, once you go to chiropractor, you're going to always have to go. And there's some chiropractors that's true for a good reason. Some it's true for a bad reason. Mechanics are always, at the surface level anyway, under the impression, they may know what they're doing, but there's always more wrong with my car than what I brought it in for. I brought it in for a tick, and now I got tick and tack and this and that. And so is there ways that you look for besides the good mechanic, besides the gut feel and those kinds of things? Because we have to get past that to find that great mechanic.
Well, there's a few things. If you bring your car in for one complaint, make sure your mechanic fixes that complaint first before they tell you everything else that's wrong with the car. Because our protocol is you come in, we fix your complaint, then we make suggestions later, and we use a number scale between 1 and 5. And 1 being very low on the scale, 5 being you got to get it done.
Yeah, or you're at risk.
Yep, and it's a connection you need to do. You got to road test the car. That's why we're a small shop, but we're always busy because we spend the time. Because then if you get a common ground, like say, they have their snow tires on and they have a rumble, but that's really a wheel bearing and they think that it's the snow tires. So you explain to them, say, you know what, we took your car out on our first road test, and sometimes when you say first, that's setting them up for them asking questions, like how many road tests do you do? We do 3 road tests. Tech does twice, then I do 1 at the end. I'd like to say I do it all the time, but we're just getting busy and I don't. But right. I try and do majority. And when you, on the first road test, and then you fix the customer's complaint, then you bring up and you write good notes so Becky can call and say, hey, the tech noticed this and you're getting a rumbling noise. Have you noticed that? Instead of just saying, you got a wheel bearing that's ready to fall off and you're going to die if you're going down the highway.
Right. So
you don't want to use this
descriptive thing that the person would feel as opposed to the diagnostic thing.
Yes. And just saying, we felt this on our road test. Then we lifted it up to verify We use stethoscopes, and, we heard that you got a left front wheel bearing that's bad. Is that something that you want to address? Then they feel like, oh, well, we just related. They heard it. They didn't really know what it was. Then, since they have an audible sound, and then when they get their car back and the sound's not there anymore, you did them justice. They understand.
And what do you guys do? We have had a relationship for, if I recall, rough 15 to 16 years, right?
Yes.
When my wife, Shauna, got her car, has been taking it to you since it was a baby, since the car was a baby. And now I will say, to your credit, that car has over 200,000 miles, about 2.25, I think. Still runs great, amazing car. But we have a relationship. And what's so cool to me is you think of some of these professions, and again, as your mechanic, you don't think of the mechanic having a relationship with the customer. You think of them dropping car, because I think so many of us have the experience of the dealership, right? Drop your car off at the dealership, and then they're going to give you all the upsell things. And do you want to do this? And do you want to do that? How does your shop particular, how do you guys go about building the connection relationship? Because no matter what business we're in connecting and customer businesses. How do you guys do it?
We don't use the fear factor. We don't know what the customer situation is. We don't know if they, have money, don't have money. So we don't assume. We just explain it to them, try and connect with them the best we can when we're trying to tell them what's going wrong. We're the advocate between the vehicle and the customer.
What a great description. I've never heard that. You're the advocate between the vehicle and the customer.
So we just have to explain their case, the vehicle's case. And also, you have to put a little bit of the personal factor there. Everybody in our community, between me, Tyler, and Becky, Rob, and even Truman, we're all in Golden. So we have a tie-in. We do help people out. We also pull over and help people on the side of the road in our community. They get to know you. When I first opened up years ago, I did a lot of house calls to help people out.
Wow.
Just to let them know that I'm here. But that goes back to what we were talking about the beginning of all this was you got to have a passion for it. You got to love it. It was always, like you said, if it's something that you want to do, you'll never work a day of your life if you love it. I enjoy helping people, making sure that they get their kids dropped off at daycare, go to work so they can pay their mortgage. It's all that. We're all in this together. And if we just look at it for the dollar aspect of it, none of us are going to succeed.
Absolutely. So good, Ernie. And one thing I got to tell you again, just speaking from me to you, as we've become friends and you've been our mechanic for so long. I appreciated one time when we were looking at that same Jeep we were just talking about, and I said, this thing has so many miles, had 150,000 miles or something on it. And I remember saying to you, when should I look at putting a new motor into this? And, we had that conversation, and you were just so honest with me and said, look, if the motor would cost you this much, so unless you're going to do this, you should drive it that way. Or in the sense of the other issue with the Jeep that we just went through, you said, here's the options you have. You can turn this thing into a snowplow, or you can get rid of it. But I'm telling you right now, this is not a car that you want to keep on the road. So when you look at that, I just appreciate that ability to know and to be confident. Because as humans, we all want to be led. You know what I mean? Like we want it, when we have questions, we want someone we can trust, that we know knows the answers, that's going to not lead us astray, or at least give us the best information they can. And in the mechanic world,
give you options.
And that's incredible. Did that come from your passion and all the rest of this, or how did you come up with that concept as a business model?
Because I live it. I don't, I drive an old 1998 BMW 528 with 218,000 miles on it, and I keep my car running so I can enjoy other qualities in life that I enjoy, like snowmobiling, boating, having a place up in the mountains. I, unfortunately can't afford to have all the nice stuff, so I have to budget a little bit.
Yeah.
And if I can keep an old car running, and in the big picture, it saves. It saves on getting your renewals for your tags.
Yeah,
saves
your
on insurance.
Yes.
You know, because nowadays, if you buy a new car, you're paying $800 plus for tags for the next 3 years.
Yes.
Then if you drive it a lot, then you got to pay for tires. And then, your tires are always going to go bad right when you need tires. or your tires are going to go bad when you got to...
Your money's low.
Yeah, or when you need to pay for your tags.
Yes.
It always happens. Murphy's Law always happens when you need something else.
Yeah.
And then you need this, then you need that. So just try and live simple.
Are you a fan, and I want to come back to living simple in a minute. Are you a fan by quality of a certain era of car? In other words, do you think, man, if you buy a car now, the new cars, every time that I've gone through, it's like, well, the old cars, they were sturdy, they were this, and now the new cars are junk. Well, now that keeps happening through time, where now decades have gone by since I've been hearing that. How do you feel about the new car versus the old car? If money's not an object, just technology, power, reliability, durability, what do you think?
I love the new cars. They just scare me because they're so dang fast.
Yes.
I got to try and keep my driver's license. Because they are. I mean, they're faster than a lot of the muscle cars out there now. You can put thousands into a small block Chevy or Ford, and you can go street light to street light. But in these new model cars, you can go 100 plus, take turns that say 55 miles an hour, and you can do almost 90 through them. It's just simply amazing.
The technology.
Yeah. And if no money, if you don't have a budget, new cars, only way to go.
Wow. How is servicing them?
Nowadays with technology, they do with the horsepower that they have, they're creating different problems. They're trying to make cars lighter and more powerful with the turbos. And it's just putting a lot of strain on the timing belts.
Oh, and that's expensive to change, right? That's not a cheap deal.
I shouldn't say timing belts because we don't have a lot of those anymore, but timing chains.
Timing chains, okay.
They're stretching. They're getting play. The hydraulic tensioner can't take it up, the slack. So we have some issues there. And when you start boosting a motor, you get oil leaks. So we're seeing more oil leaks, like BMWs and Audis, and crankcase breathers, because you're pressuring those. Mm-hmm. And there's just different items going wrong.
Yeah.
And BMW and Audi extended their oil changes for a long time to 15,000 miles and the 10,000 miles, and now BMW's going back to 5,000 miles.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm. Because there's so much into these vehicles in the variable valve timing components and their screens. And the only way I can, explain it is, you get deposits. Just like if you have an old cast iron skillet and you want to cook a pork chop. It's real greasy and lubricated in the center. The oil's thin, but on the sides where it's not so hot, you get these deposits.
Yes.
That's what you get in your engine on those extended oil changes. So, and the parts are getting more expensive for these vehicles, mm-hmm. especially in this day and time right now.
Yeah. So from your perspective, would it make sense? And maybe this is a little outside of what you do, but from the perspective of enjoying a car and longevity of it, assuming you go, like if your budget says you got to keep an old car and keep it running, that's one thing. So maybe we'll come back to that. But if you're doing a new car based on performance alone, would you be more of a renter or leaser if miles aren't the issue?
Well, if you're going to lease a car and not drive it, then you're more of a collector. So
yeah.
I'd probably own it.
Yes.
But if you're going to drive around all the time and you're a salesman, definitely I would probably own it too.
Yep.
Because you get dinged on the mileage.
Really hard.
Yes.
Yeah. What about this? What about you and I have had this conversation, so I just want to get an update. How do you feel as far as reliability, performance, durability of the electric cars, Tesla, et cetera?
I think they're fabulous. I would love to have one, but I just honestly don't see the longevity of it because, we're having to drain reservoirs to keep dams moving, the hydrogen plants, and we just don't have the grids to support it.
So what we're seeing on TV, I mean, literally every day, Cadillac's coming out with a full,
They have
Audi. They have to try to keep up
It's
with
just like
the demand.
back in the 90s when everybody had to have ultra low emissions.
Yes.
So it's the regulations from the EPA having their thumb on them and letting them know that they have to take this route.
So the cars are fabulous, but your concern is our ability to power them. Just like fossil fuels, if you run out of fossil fuels, now we're saying energy could be a problem.
Yes.
Interesting. Wow. So that's
Just
something that
like
you don't hear about.
No, just like our water. I mean, there's other states that take a lot of water from Colorado. And, we're running low ourselves.
And that affects how much energy you have because of coming through the dams.
That and, they want to close down coal plants and things like that to create electricity. Because what's going to happen in our society is we're needy. We want it now.
Yes.
And when that happens and it takes 6 hours or whatever to, even 3-4 hours to charge up your car, they have actually the technology out there to do it a lot faster, but it takes a lot more energy.
Oh, I see.
Just like in California, they don't have the grid to turn seawater into drinking water because it takes too much energy.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
So, I mean, there's all kinds of different avenues if you really look at it in a big spectrum.
Yeah, big picture way.
Yes. And we're just looking at things in the wrong angle, because there's other sources out there. If you got to build a infrastructure for our grids, why don't we do it for hydrogen? Why don't we go to nuclear?
Is that on the horizon? Do you follow all that at all? What future fuel sources would be?
But I know it was back in the 80s.
Yeah.
I
remember hydrogen definitely being a part of that. I actually invested in a hydrogen motor that the guy ended up went a little crazy, so I lost all my money, but the concept was sound at the time.
Yeah. And it was dual fuel. I mean, BMW came out with a 7 Series, I believe, in 92 or 93, where I remember I won the ACT contest for BMW and went to San Bernardino, and they actually had a 7 Series, I believe it was a 1994. 1994 7 Series that was up on some stands, and they had it running inside, and they had cups by the exhaust, and it drips water. And you could sip on the water.
Oh, come on. Are you kidding?
No, that's what they had. It was amazing.
Wow. That's amazing. So there's possibilities. There's other options here. And do we know if the motor companies are working on all that stuff, or is that a whole geopolitical bit?
Yeah.
Okay. So you never know what gets out and what gets squashed.
Right.
Gotcha. So in the era that we're living in right now, we have to drive around. There's no way of us getting around it. We need to be conscientious about how we do it. What would you say to the average listener about the best driving habits to make your car be as good as it can? Should you run it hard now and again? Should you keep it in certain parameters, rotating the tires? What's some of the basics?
Some of the basics is definitely don't short trip it all the time.
What does that mean?
Short trip is like you leave your house and you go to the grocery store, post office, and you're only putting on 5 miles a day or 5 miles a week, letting it sit.
Okay, so what should you do?
You should take it out and drive it. It's
For a minimum of 20 miles, 50 miles?
I would say probably 50.
And how often should you do that?
At least once a month if you're not.
Yeah, because you got people that have 3 cars. If they have 3 cars, then that car that's sitting, you're saying once a month or so, take it out. Stretch its legs a little bit.
Yeah, and even if you don't hit your miles on your oil changes, make sure that you get your oil changed once a year, because they have a lot of great additives in our oils these days. Mm-hmm. But it settles to the bottom if it sits too long. And it, with our temperature changes, especially here in Colorado, we could have one day where it's in the teens, next day it's in the 50s.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? What about with tires? What about checking anything like that?
Tires, you definitely have 7 years before they get cracked and weather cracked, especially with the dry climate that we have here. So definitely just look at the DOT numbers that's on the side of the tire. There'll be a little, a DOT, and then it'll have like 7 or 8 numbers, and then you'll have a circle that'll have some numbers in there. The first 2 are the date, the middle is the day, and then the last 2 is the year.
Okay.
So you just look at that and make sure that, you got good tires, and just look at them. Because in between the tread and on the side, you'll see cracks. Things will get, weather cracked. And they'll start showing signs of cracks in the side.
Okay.
Like,
and that's dangerous. Is there a point where you say, man, I got to get tires like immediately?
Absolutely. We get people that come in that have, an older BMW, like a Z4, that they drive maybe 1,500 miles a year, and they got tires from 06 on them. And they're just cracked up, and we'll bring them back and show them. Again, visual,
that
speaks
visual
volumes.
connection.
Yeah.
And any other things? Do you have to worry about checking fluids regularly on and obviously if you see leaking of a fluid, then you should definitely check
just be aware. And the one thing nice, if you take your car into a mechanic that you trust once a year, they'll go over it bumper to bumper and let you know what you need to do.
Is that what you recommend? Once a year checkups?
Absolutely.
Yep. Just like your body, right? You're going for your yearly checkup?
Yep. And, a lot of people don't know this either, is brake fluid attracts moisture. So that can rust your calipers, and you can spend more for, not doing any maintenance until something fails. And a brake fluid is inexpensive for what it can cost you later. It can rust out brake lines, seize calipers. So then you have to get caliper and brakes because it got stuck where the pad is rubbing constantly up against the rotor, and it goes metal to metal before you know it.
That's crazy. And so I think, here's what I would sum up. If the car feels different with rumblings, if it sounds different, or if it acts different, take it in to get to someone you trust. But hopefully you've done that research already, finding someone you can trust. Because here's what I've always thought. I was literally laying on a table one day, and I was getting a massage. And I'm like, man, this massage is amazing. This should be part of everyone's group. And while I was on the table, I'm thinking, what are all the things that people should have? So it wasn't a very relaxing massage because now my mind's working.
Yeah.
What are the resources that you should have? And the things that I came up with were basically health stuff for your health. So providers, right? Whether it be, medical doctors, chiropractors, massage therapists, acupuncturists, whatever.
Just like your body, there's a lot of moving parts, just like your car.
That's right. And then I thought your finances. You need someone in your corner who understands finances, a banker, a financial investor. And then the next thing I thought of, Ernie, was someone to take care of your car. You need a good mechanic.
So going back to finances, wouldn't it be neat? I've thought of this years ago. I tried to do it with some companies. They have HSAs for health. Why can't they do it for your vehicles? So your company you work for, because what that'll do is make sure that people come in, they're making it to work on time.
Yeah. Right.
To keep the world moving.
Right. I love that. Like an HSA for
your
cars.
automotive.
It's so smart. And if we were taking that advice of get all these advisors and these helpers in your life lined up, and you go to, I didn't have anything wrong with my car. And I walk into some mechanic shop and I say, hey, what would you do to look at my car? What would I expect for them to give me? I just want to see, it's been a while. I want my yearly checkup.
It all depends how busy that year was for the driver in his car.
Okay. So those are the questions that should be asked by the mechanic.
Yeah. And questions is has your car been sitting too? So to check the battery. So if it's been sitting, you can kind of look at a couple things, the state of charge and also the life of the battery. Because, if they say the car is 6 years old and that's original battery, then as a good mechanic, they'll tell you probably the life of your battery lasts is, what we look at, the duration of the battery is anywhere from 5 to 6 years of a battery. Then it starts getting weak. Then you get a cold snap. Then it just
Can't handle
Just
it.
like our body, our joints, we know when the weather's changing because our
Yes.
knees hurt, our back hurts, and, it sucks the life out of you. Same thing with a battery.
So good. Man, you have given so much information, Ernie. Is there any other car advice you would have for people with respect to either tying their cars to their lives and their bodies, or anything about being safe on the roads with respect to their vehicle?
Be considerate of others, and also, like you said earlier, you take care of your body, take care of your car. If you're not having any issues with your car, it's not a bad thing to bring your car in, because could be some underlying things that you don't see or hear or know to see or hear, because life is too fast, and we just, best thing is just find a good mechanic and get it checked out.
Awesome.
Someone that you trust. So even if you don't need anything at that point, at least they can tell you what to plan for in the future, which is 6 months, like you're going to need brakes, give you an opportunity to plan for it.
Beautiful. Ernie, I ask every guest this as we wind the show down, and here's the question. Is there one piece of advice that you've learned along the way, or that you were given at some point, where you feel like, this is operational hardware, like this is an integral piece of how I live my life, that you would want to share with the audience?
One thing that always stands out, and someone had told me this a number of years ago, hard decision, easy life. Easy decision, hard life.
Ooh, I get it exactly. Now I want you to explain it in case someone's like, wait, what?
Sometimes you make easy decisions to cop out of something, but it catches up to you. If you know and follow your instinct, your intuition to make that hard decision, the right thing to do, even right or wrong, or the right thing to do for someone else or your family, you might have to put a little more effort in, but it'll work out better later.
Man, that is brilliant. And how could people get a hold of you if they wanted to reach out and learn more and ask questions, or have your shop take a look? What would they do to reach you?
We're located in Golden. You can look up our website.
What's your website?
It's Eurotech Golden.
And TECH?
TECH.
Yep. So EUROTECH golden.com.
Just Google us. We have an online presence, even on Facebook, and you can just email us. And email is a little slower because we run such a mean, lean shop that we don't look at all the emails that come in, but we definitely do address them. But the best way is probably to call us at 303-279-1989.
That is perfect. So if you have questions, please reach out to Ernie and his shop at Eurotech. They are awesome people. I will give this, again, probably for the fourth time. They are our standard, our go-to, have been for 15 years in the cars that we've had, different kinds of cars, not just BMWs, all kinds of stuff. They just do great work. So you have questions, you have concerns, you have needs, you reach out to Ernie and his team over at Eurotech Golden, and I promise you, you will be happy. So Ernie, thank you for joining the show today. I hope you had as much fun as I did. I always learn whenever I talk with you, and you're definitely hitting me in my weak spot of something I don't know, so I rely on you. So thanks for that and educating our listening audience.
Yeah, this was fun. I didn't know what to expect, and I thought I'd try and plan, but I didn't know what to plan for.
Just like life. Sometimes the good stuff just comes along.
That's it.
Excellent. Well, you have a great rest of your day. Audience, you guys enjoy. Take care of yourselves. Remember, we're all making a difference, and as Ernie said, we're all in this together.